rebel salute, rebel salute to every Kenyan and every African out there who cares about justice, freedom, and the rule of law, respect for the rule of law. Now, this is going to be a Kenyan issue. As you know, my name is Kenyan Revolutionary. So I saw this clip, not clip, but it's a video from Spice FM. By the way, just in case in the future, if you guys want to strike down my channel, let me go ahead and say this video that I'm going to play is from Spice FM in Kenya, and it's only used for education purpose only. So I'm going to use your video, Spice FM. So you can strike my channel. I'm just telling you that. Okay? Under the code in whatever, I forgot to, whatever code, the fair use code in the US. Using that to educate the public on what's going on. This is going to be an interview that was conducted in Spice FM by the Spice FM, No, and also who, Latif, and what's the other guy? Whatever his name is. They were interviewing Jimmy Wanjigi when he came to Spice FM, and Jimmy Wanjigi came and exposed how the government at the time, he started with Kibaki, then he went to Uhuru Kenyatta government, how they stole, embezzled trillions of Kenyan shillings, which is billions in US dollars, how they did that. And they are making the Kenyan taxpayers pay for their theft, for their loot that they've looted by these dodgy deals they made with this Chinese company, okay? And borrowing money from their Chinese bank, okay? So I'm going to have to play, in the majority of the part, I'm going to play Jimmy Wanjigi to explain what's going on, okay? And I want you to listen carefully, because often when I talk and I come to these lives, and I mentioned in my previous live, I was like, you know, we spend a lot of times as bloggers and vloggers talking about the personalities like, oh, Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga, Ruto, and all these colonial puppets, you know, how we play musical chairs with this cabal of useful idiots that have been used by the colonial masters, the Brits and the Americans, and you know what I mean, okay? This Western powers, how they handpick these guys to rule our nation in to benefit the corporations that they've put forth through IMF and through other means to take the loot and money from them to enrich themselves, okay? That's why we never have real, authentic, grassroots, revolutionary movement that can actually revolutionize our economy to bring the people who are suffering, the people who live in abject poverty, to move up the social economic ladder. They make sure they do so, stop us from that, by handpicking these very black faces that look like you and me, the likes of Uhuru Kenyatta, the likes of William Ruto, the likes of Raila Odinga, the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka. They're the same cabal of useful idiots that are used by the colonial masters to rule us and to stop grassroots revolutionary movement from rising up to bring real revolution in Kenya. That's what I say. That's why I always ask my Kenyan audience, why is it that for the past 30 plus years, we have the same political players that come in, year out, talking about how they can bring change, and they've been in government, okay? Look at Kalonzo Musyoka. Kalonzo Musyoka was vice president under Kibaki. Look at Raila Odinga. He was the prime minister under Kibaki, and has been the general secretary of KANU, and has been in the whatever handshake government with Kenyatta. What change has he done? Look at Martha Karua. She was in the government during Kibaki's time. Okay, she's always hold a position where she can bring change, but she never brought change. And these are the very people who in 2023 are preaching to us, trying to convince us that if they get the mantle and the power, they'll bring change. These are fakers. These are fakers. These are colonial masters that have been paid by the Western colonial powers to act like they control opposition as if they're the alternative, but they're not the alternative. They're fakers. They're there to play a role to maintain power within this cabal of the political class that are being taking their orders from the colonial masters, the Queen of England, the CIA. Okay, so don't believe anything these guys say. But here is Jimmy Wanjigi, who's kind of telling you how these people carry out their haste of the treasury, Kenyan treasury. Okay, this is Coca-Cola, by the way. If you're wondering what I'm sipping on, this is Coca-Cola. So don't let your heart not be troubled. Okay, but anyway, I'm about to play this video because I want you to listen carefully from Jimmy Wanjigi. Okay, Jimmy Wanjigi is about to tell us. Okay. All right. Are you guys ready? All right. Okay. So let's get started. Here's the first whatever that I want to play.
He has unleashed what everybody has been looking for. Khalif Khalifa and the Okoa Mombasa movement they've even gone to court. They're saying we are asking the government to give us the contracts pertaining to SGR.
They're doing a very good job, very good civil job.
We haven't received. Now you have the contract.
Yes.
You've given us one contract. This is on the civil works construction of the SGR from Mombasa to Nairobi.
Correct.
Contract of construction signed between Kenya Railways and the China Road and Bridge, and I call it China Road, Bridge, Airports, everything.
Correct.
Corporation.
Yes. Correct.
Okay?
Right.
You said there's a second contract.
There's a second contract. CT, please do the honors.
Yes, Republic of Kenya, Ministry of Transport. Supply. Familiar word in Kenya? Supply. Supply and installation of the facilities, locomotives, and rolling stocks. What are rolling stocks? For the Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway project between Kenya Railway Corporation and China Road and Bridge Corporation. Contract document, October 2012. Yes, you're going to ask the question.
October 2012.
Yeah.
Mwai Kibaki was the president. The other one was dated what?
Let's hold that right for a minute. Let's hold that for a minute, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to rerun this because this is very important, okay? It's very important. So let me play that one back. Okay. So let me replay this. So, because I want you guys to get a clear picture of what we are talking about. This is not something to play with. This is some serious business that okay, here's a video. Follow me. All right, let's go.
Then when I move out of Central, then I will go to South. Then from the South, I'll go back to West. Then I'll come back to East.
Corporation.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay?
Right.
You said there's a second contract.
There's a second contract. CT, please do the honors.
Yes, Republic of Kenya, Ministry of Transport. Supply. Familiar word in Kenya? Supply. Supply and installation of the facilities, locomotives, and rolling stocks. What are rolling stocks? For the Mombasa-Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway project between Kenya Railway Corporation and China Road and Bridge Corporation. Contract document, October 2012. Yes, you're going to ask the question.
October 2012.
Yeah.
Mwai Kibaki was the president. The other one was dated what?
June 2012.
Okay.
Okay. Sawa? Now you want to know contract and agreement, seller's power of attorney. Long details. I know what you're going to ask. This contract was made the 4th of October 2012.
Okay.
All right. Signed, stamps, even seal is there. That's very good. Now let's go to letter of award, shall we? I'm getting familiar with this thing. Right. Now, Sam.
Who's written the letter of award?
The letter of award is written by China Road and Bridge Corporation. They are in a place called C88 Zoglu Plaza. It's a long word here.
Somewhere.
And why the GA Beijing, China. But that's exactly how it's written.
Okay.
I didn't eat anything.
You didn't? Okay.
Yes, okay. But it's in China.
Okay.
Okay, so if you go to C88, you'll find
You'll
them.
find that.
Okay, right. The amount in dollars is, in billions of dollars, 1.146,791,008.7.
1.4?
1,146,791,008.75.
Right.
Alrighty.
Okay,
Okay.
that is the
Amount
of award. Then there's the acceptance.
by
For
Kenya
what?
Railways.
Sorry, City. For what?
Supply of rolling stock.
Rolling
Supply, let me
Stones.
read it. Supply and installation of facilities. Before the Rolling Stones, there were facilities.
Installation of facilities.
Yes, installation of facilities,
All right.
locomotives, as in Gariamoshi, rolling stocks.
Yours
For,
as in?
rolling stocks,
As in?
as in stocks which are rolling. For the Mombasa Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway Project. And stop
Pause.
asking me questions, I can't
Jimmy,
answer.
what are those three things? What is facilities? What is locomotives? What is rolling stock?
Well, facilities are stations,
Okay.
not the actual stations that you see constructed, but the railway station. Where it docks the mechanics.
Okay.
Every time it comes to sort the electrical.
The signaling
Right.
and all.
Yes.
Okay.
Then you have rolling stock.
Mhm.
Rolling stock is all part of the locomotives. Really, it's just a nice big word.
So locomotives and rolling stock.
and rolling
are same
stock,
thing.
it's the same thing.
It's the wagon.
It's a wagon.
It's the bogey.
Correct.
It's the bogey.
Yes.
Aye.
How much is the amount?
1.46.
1.1
billion
billion
dollars.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Nairobi, Mombasa.
It's Nairobi, Mombasa.
Right.
Yes. And exclusive of value-added tax, custom duties, IDF fees, cess, and withholding tax.
That's the same with the civil contract.
Yes, same.
No taxation.
No taxation.
No.
All right. Signed by the same individual who
Okay.
had signed before
Okay.
and addressed to the same managing director.
Okay.
Right. Now, I want you to read the first part of this is now the finance agreement
Finance agreement.
that was signed in August 2013.
What is a finance agreement?
Now, this is what puts together, and this is what this is what Makoman brought out,
Okay.
right? This agreement,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
This is now the finance agreement to finance both the rolling stock and the civil works
Okay.
for the construction of SGR from Mombasa
Two.
to Nairobi.
So this is the
Yes.
document that itemizes it.
No,
In terms
just
of
the
pay
finance.
This is the one that
Just the
says where
finance.
is the money going to come
Where is
from?
it going to
The
come
money is
from?
coming from this place.
Correct.
Oh.
Correct.
Who is going to pay
Yes.
China Road and Bridge and blah blah
Yes.
to do this job for which they've been contracted?
Yes.
Okay.
Aye.
So that you are clear that these two contracts are the ones covered
by the
by the finance agreement
Okay.
done in August 2013.
Huruto one.
Correct.
Okay.
Please read the first paragraph. This one. Whereas, after whereas.
Okay. Let me just mention, this is the Memorandum of Understanding on Financial Support for Mombasa Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway Project between the Government of the Republic of Kenya, represented by the National Treasury and Export-Import Bank of China.
Okay.
Whereas, Kenya Railway Corporation, herein referred to as KRC, and China Road and Bridge Corporation, herein referred to as CBC, have entered into on July 11th and October 4th, 2012.
What are the contracts?
Those are those two. Mm-hmm.
Those two.
July and October.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The commercial contracts on civil works and supply and installation of facilities, locomotives, and rolling stocks for the Mombasa Nairobi Standard Gauge Railway Project, herein referred to as the project,
Okay.
with a total sum of US dollars $3.804 billion for the purpose of implementation of the project. The government of the Republic of Kenya is desirous to request
3 points.
Sorry, what?
$3.804 billion
For the purpose of?
for the purpose of
Those two
implementing
contracts.
the project.
Is it those two contracts?
Yes, it is for those two.
So the 2.2 something and
Combined is
1.14.
3.8.
Combined is 3.804
Got it.
billion.
All right.
Are we together?
Gotcha.
As we say in Kenya?
Mm.
Tuko pamoja? Let me read this last one, Jimmy. Let's read it. The government of Kenya is desirous to request for financing support of China Exim Bank, which is conscious of the significance of the project on social and economic development of the Republic of Kenya, and is willing to provide financial support to implement the project after conducting a preliminary review.
Okay.
Freedom. Freedom is why I love
Sorry,
doing
guys,
apartment
this
deals,
is
just like the one you're
Marshall.
seeing on the screen now.
Let me
Good.
get rid of it.
Signatories?
The signatories done at Beijing on this 19th day of
This was
August.
during President Uhuru's first visit to China.
Yes,
Okay.
August
Kenyatta.
2013. Mr. Henry Rotich, Cabinet Secretary, National Treasury of the Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
Signature. Then Mr. San Ping, Vice President of the Export-Import Bank of China, on behalf of the Export-Import.
For all you Uhuru fans, these ODM lunatics, pinheads that are usually talking about, under Uhuru sijui nini nini, under Kibaki sijui nini nini. This was under Uhuru Kenyatta that managed this. That's affecting us to this day. And it's carrying on by Ruto. Ruto is carrying on Uhuru. This is why I tell you. But anyway, let's listen. Grab some mail. This is a marathon. This is not. Let's go on. Come on. Let's read it.
Bank of China.
All right.
Those are signatories.
Okay. So Treasury and Exim Bank China have entered into a financing agreement.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, further to this agreement, in it says that 3.8 is 90% of the project cost. So that the Kenya government is to raise 10%, what they call self-raising finance, right, as its contribution.
Yeah, I'm confused by this math.
Why?
Because already those two contracts, my math shows me that it should be 3.4.
Why?
See, that one was 1.146 for rolling stock. And the other one was 2 point.
It was 220.
So it was 2.2.
So $2.2 billion.
Plus 1.46
Yeah.
is 3.4.
It comes to 3.4.
So now here we are at 3.8,
Two-
and the 3.8 is 90% of the total.
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
confused.
Don't be confused.
1.4 plus 2.2 is.
Don't be confused
3.6.
at all.
Yeah.
Because
Mm.
in this contract of civil works,
Mm.
there is something called non-binding BQs.
Okay.
Do you know what that means?
No.
A BQ is a bill of quantities.
Yes, but non-binding.
Of the amounts that of material that is needed for the project.
Okay.
So if you are saying, for example, Mombasa to Nairobi needs 10,000 steel bars of, let's say, 100 meters,
Yep.
right? Okay?
Yep.
Steel
Bars of
Bars
100
of 100
meters.
meters.
Yes.
10,000,
Yep.
right? That becomes non-binding in this contract. Because as you go along the way, it may become
It
15,000,
may increase,
Okay.
it may reduce.
right? Non-binding normally has a clause that says, not non-binding. BQs always have a fluctuation clause that says maybe 10%
Variation.
variation.
Okay.
But this one is non-binding,
Binding.
which means as they are going along, the quantities may increase.
So the quantities are not fixed.
They're not
Yeah.
fixed.
And if they're not fixed, the cost
Then
is
also the
not
cost
fixed.
is not fixed.
All right.
Correct.
So are we providing
So
for
what
them?
what I'm showing here is a contract that was the basis of the finance agreement, but with a non-binding BQ. So an allowance seems to have been given
Okay.
for amounts, right?
That's why we're
That
going
may
to
have
about
come later in an
3.8.
addendum, which we
Okay.
don't know, right?
So
Which
the-
we don't know.
What-
Okay.
would you
But
say that-
normally,
Okay, what Jimmy is trying to explain here is like the contract. Let's say if you were to build a car, and the cost of building a car by doing my feasibility studies the car will cost 100,000. I'm just using an example, okay? The non-binding stuff that he's talking about is like, in case something comes up while I'm building the car, I'll just front you instead of giving you 100,000 of that loan, and it might have come in later. I'll just, instead of giving 100,000 loan, I'll give you the total of 200,000 to cover anything that's unforeseen event. Let's say you just build the car and it needs to have like the brakes that will cost another 50,000. I'll just front you 200,000 instead of that. Okay, that's what he's trying to explain. But let's go on, because this is some serious crime that's happening there, and that's why I tell you, be careful. Stop running around listening to this nonsense about Uhuru Kenyatta, Raila Odinga. These people are all criminals that should be harmed to death. But let's listen to Jimmy Wanjigi, because I want you to listen to this guy, okay? It will help you understand why we are having high cost of living. Let's go on.
Normally in law, in our laws of Kenya, you cannot vary a project more than 10%. Right? You cannot. But here it became irrelevant.
So our math, according to what's on paper in those contracts, is $3.4 billion. The agreement is for $3.8 billion, which is a 90% component. This 3.8 is 90%.
Yes. 90%.
Okay.
And the Kenya government is to raise
10%. What does 10% equate to?
So let's say the project is 3.8. No, 3.4. 10% should have been
3.8.
Let's say 3.8. So the Kenyan government should have raised 3.8. Yes.
3.8 billion is 90% of X.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Pay attention to what he's saying. What he's saying is this: in every, let's say this project that was done, let's say if the project cost 100,000, okay? Kenya, the taxpayers, what Kenyans should have been paying was 10% of what the project cost, which is 10% of 100,000 is what? Is it what? 1,000 or something like that? Okay, $1,000 or something. That is what Kenyan government, the taxpayers, were supposed to pay. The other, the Chinese bank was supposed to pay that 90% of that 100,000, which is what? 90,000, okay, something like that. You do the math, okay? So that's what he's trying to say, all right? So let's keep on going.
380 billion. 380 billion.
Okay.
Right? Not 380. 38 billion.
38 billion.
38 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Because we're going at 100. We're going at 100
billion.
shillings per dollar.
Correct.
Right? At that
Correct.
At that point.
Correct.
So you're looking at about 380 billion.
It's 3.8
Yes.
3.8 times 1.9.
Yes.
Yeah.
So 38 billion.
Yes.
All right.
More or less.
Are we on the same page? Now,
It's 4 point something billion.
Now we've extrapolated that, right? Because in our books, the debt to China Exim Bank is $5 billion. An extension of 1.2 to this going to duka moja. Sio Kimau, duka moja. All right?
Okay.
So the total to duka moja is $5 billion. That's the loan we took from China
Okay.
Exim Bank.
Okay.
All right? Are we on the same page?
So far.
Mombasa
Right.
too. Yeah.
So of that $5 billion, right? We've taken the
Ladies and gentlemen, write down these numbers. I want you to do your math at home. Listen to what he's saying and do the math at home. Okay?
exchange rate over the period, right? And calculated, right? That total cost, right? As 475 billion shillings.
Okay.
All right. So like the 380, and then you go to Donga Kundu, I mean to Dukamoja,
Yeah.
you have 474 billion shillings.
Okay.
Right? So the entire rail city from Mombasa all the way to Dukamoja, okay, is just under 500 billion shillings. All right. Now, China Exim Bank, according to the debt book, did advance us $5 billion,
Okay.
which was 90%.
The debt book is at CBK.
Yes. And it's also tabulated as an item in the budget. So they advanced us $5 billion, which was 90% of the construction of the rail from Mombasa to Dukamoja, Naivasha.
Okay.
All right? Are we on the same page?
I was on the same page, but I'm
Right.
going to have to ask, did this money find itself in the consolidated fund?
Yes.
Okay.
It landed.
This one landed. How it landed is by drawdowns. So I'll give you an example, a graphic example. When China Road constructs, it provides to Kenya Railways certificates of payment. Right? Kenya Railways forwards those certificates of payments to the Treasury. The Treasury pays its 10%, right?
Yep.
Self-raising finance
Okay.
on that certificate,
Okay.
and then issues a notice of drawdown to China Exim
Exim.
Bank,
Right.
which then issues its payments directly
To China Road.
to China Road, yes, to China Road, from Exim Bank, China
To
to
China
China Road.
Okay.
So the notices of drawdown can be seen as a debit in the consolidated fund.
Fund, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Are we together? All right.
Yep.
So we just did the math. As we keep saying, this thing is in plain sight.
Sight.
Do.
Yeah.
It's in plain sight. Just that our very good professionals here don't do the numbers, right? This is simple math, right? So we looked at the debt and we said, were the notices of drawdown done according to the construction?
Okay.
We found, yes, they were.
So every time China Road would complete,
Would complete?
issue its certificate to Kenya Railways,
Yes.
Kenya Railways would certify that, yes, true, this has been done, forward it to Treasury.
Yes.
Treasury would pay its bid,
Yes.
forward this to Exim Bank. Exim
Yes.
Bank pays.
Would pay its bid. So
Okay.
Exim Bank paid China Road in bridge in full the $5 billion.
Right.
That it did. And we, in turn, have been paying a loan repayments to that, both interest and we started principal
Okay.
years ago. All right?
Okay.
That is there. Good record.
For those who are confused, the China Exim Bank was the bank that was loaning us that money. They were paying 90% of the loan. We, the Kenyan people, through the Treasury, we were paying 10% of the loan. Who are we paying? We are paying this bridge, whatever, that was actually doing the construction and everything, okay? So understand the entities here. There's the Kenyan people, the taxpayers, who are represented by the Treasury. Then there's our people who we are borrowing money from, who are the China Exim Bank. Then there are those who are doing the construction, which is the bridges, road, and something, whatever, who are actually receiving this money to actually do this construction and everything. Okay, so these bridges and whatever company, once they do this job, okay, they come up with a certificate and they tell us, hey, we've done this and this. Then we tell the China people, the China Exim Bank, and they send this whatever to tell us that the contractor say, hey, here's the money, whatever, and we pay this Exim Bank. So listen to it carefully. Sorry to interrupt you, but listen to Jimmy Wanjigi. Back to the point.
So then we audited what you call the self-raising 10% funds.
Yes.
The money that is granted by Treasury to Kenya Railways, 10% for the construction and for the locomotives.
Okay.
All right? And we did the sums. So if it was 470 billion is the Kenyan shilling value, the 10% amounts to what?
40 billion.
47,
It's
47
47
billion
Yeah.
shillings.
7 billion.
It's 47 billion. But then, Jimmy, it's 470 billion is 90%. It's not 100%.
Yeah. No. This is now we've taken 100%
Okay.
on 475.
So-
So we've taken the 5 billion
Yeah.
plus our
Yeah.
10% raising.
Yeah.
It comes to
So
475.
comes to this, yes. So of 475 billion,
10% is
10% is
47.5 billion.
47.5 billion.
right. So we look for the 47.5 billion. And sure enough, before Treasury issued its notice of drawdown, it had to give evidence that it had paid the 10% self-raising finance.
Right.
So we just calculated. Okay?
Okay.
And do you know what that amount got to?
47.5 plus.
No, unfortunately
75.
not. Unfortunately not.
It's less.
This one I want you to read. This is the amount of our 10% contribution.
Yeah, okay. 644 billion shillings.
Yes.
644 billion.
That's a contribution.
That's our 10%
That's
contribution.
10%, which should have been 47.5 billion shillings.
We paid how much?
644 billion shillings. It was received by KRC, transferred to C.
Did you hear what they say? Our contribution mathematically was supposed to be 47 point something billion, all right? Our 10%, based on what we agreement, the contract said, because we were supposed to pay 10% of the total amount of the agreed upon, the estimate of what the project might take, which was to total 47 point something billion, right? But according to Treasury, it says that we paid 644 billion. How the math is not mathing. You listen to what they're saying.
ERBC.
Okay.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
And those are in our books.
Yes,
Okay.
in plain sight.
How do we
And I
explain
have all the documents. All the transfers, everything.
this?
All the documents.
644, not 64.4.
No, 644 billion.
As opposed to
47.5.
47.5 billion.
Aha. We were supposed to save to send 47.5.
47.5, but ended up sending
in,
644.
given our reputation for enormous generosity, we
decided to
decided to
send
give
10 times the
600 and
amount.
how much again?
644 billion.
billion.
Okay.
Okay, Jimmy. With each certificate issued by China Road, right, and the corresponding payments, were you seeing a 10% correlation?
All they do, and you know, this is what I'm saying.
Because
I think if you want to talk about a crime site, it is called the Treasury. What you see is one simple line: self-raising finance for SGR construction. They don't even put, it's not called 10%.
Okay.
It's just called self-raising
Raising finance, SGR construction.
SGR construction.
Now, in your audit,
Yes.
you should be seeing. So when they're issuing a certificate, the amount of money that China Road receives from Exim should correspond 10% with the amount of money that Treasury
According
has
to who?
released to the-
According to who?
according to
You
the
see,
contract.
what you need
Everything
to
you're
understand,
explaining.
what you need to understand is that they seem like they are different departments in the Treasury. There's one that is doing the drawdown for the loan,
Okay.
right? Saying, oh, I've received the certificate, issue Exim Bank with the drawdown.
Yes.
And there is another that is paying the grant from Treasury
To Kenya Railways.
as 10% contribution, so-called self-raising finance for contribution.
And what's Kenya Railways
And-
supposed to have done with this money?
Now, what they did,
CRBCC.
and it's also very well recorded, they pay China Road and Bridge.
So the money they receive.
So China Road and Bridge
Mm.
received a total of 1.18 trillion shillings.
I'm confused.
644 plus the $5 billion.
Right. That amount, the 644, Jimmy. I get it.
Yes.
This 644, when you're doing your audit and you're seeing a certificate has been issued and there's the process of the payments, at the point when the Treasury.
Did you hear that? The Chinas and bridges. Again, let's not confuse it. The bridges and whatever company received money from the Exim Bank. Okay. How much was it? 5 billion? Is it 5 billion? And we, the taxpayers, paid them 640 something, 44 billion, which comes up to 1 point something trillion. We've overpaid. Are you following? Are you following, Kenyans? Follow. And if you don't believe me, go to Spice FM and play this and write down the numbers and monitor, because maybe you think I'm just making up stuff from out here. Go write down the numbers. This is the kind of haste, robbery from taxpayers. But I'll play the video. Let's go.
Is releasing this amount. How much do they release to Kenya Railways? Were you seeing a variation, or was it a constant figure?
No, it was not constant. There are different figures.
There are different figures.
There are different figures because certificates are different.
Because of different
They're different.
stages.
So it's understood
Alright.
if they're different.
But then it would be corresponding. It would be if you're receiving 100 from China Exim, right? You should be receiving 10.
Okay,
from
who
Kenya
is supposed
Railways.
to do this audit?
See, that's what you were doing. I'm asking what.
Oh,
what you
all
were
we
doing
did, all
when you
we
were doing
did,
it.
all we
How
did.
do you see? Were you seeing
All we did was this. What is the project cost?
5?
And how much money has been received?
Okay.
So did it receive the money from China Exim Bank? Yes, they did. Did they receive the self-raising finance
From the National Treasury.
National Treasury? Yes, they did.
And
What were
some.
the sums?
And some.
And some.
Yeah.
So we just did the numbers.
Here you see what Jimmy Wanjigi is saying. He's saying, he's breaking it down simply. It's like, how much did the Exim Bank pay this Bridges and something company? What was the agreed? That's why he brought out the 2 contracts. The contracts give you the amount that was agreed upon that was going to be paid from the bank that we borrowed money from, and the amount that we agreed to pay upon, the 10%. So you as an auditor, if you come in and say, okay, how much did the Exim Bank that we borrowed from that agreed to pay 90% of this project, which was supposed to take 5 billion, something like that, okay, whatever. Okay, this is the amount. How much this bank, how much they pay? You go to Treasury and see how much they pay these Bridges and whatever bank. Then you see how much did we as taxpayers paid through this Treasury. How much did we pay these guys? That's all you have to do. And you find out how much these Bridges and whatever company paid. And the numbers are astounding, shocking. So let's go on. That's what basically Jimmy Wanjigi is explaining.
Now, if you want us to cross audit, right? That is an exercise for the Auditor General. That's an exercise for COB. That should have been their job. What we have are the claims for the project,
And
the
the
certificates and the payments.
So total payments were 1.2 trillion.
Almost 1.2 trillion that went to China Road and Bridge for a project of 475 billion. Now,
the project, again here, the project is 475 billion. That was the amount that was supposed to cost. Let me just round it up. The project was supposed to take 5 billion, was it shillings or dollars, whatever. Okay, that was the total project. If you consider all the whatever and all of them, it was supposed to cost 5 billion, all right? But the amount that was paid, okay, to this China Road and Construction. Remember, don't confuse China Bridges and whatever. This China Bridges and whatever is a company that was supposed to undertake the construction. Don't confuse it with the Exim Bank. The Exim Bank is who we borrowed from. The money where it was coming. 90% of this project was supposed to come out. The money, 90% of the money was supposed to come from the Exim Bank. Exim Bank is different from the China Bridges and whatever company, okay? Get me correctly. So the total project is supposed to cost $5 billion. I'm just rounding it up. But the amount that we paid was 1 point something trillion. See what I'm getting at? So let's continue.
what you need to understand
is that we paid more from our pockets than China Exim Bank paid.
Now you got it. We, Kenyans, with our taxes, financed that entire project and more. We did not even need a loan. That's the way you need to digest this.
Pana, no.
That's what you need to digest.
Pana, no.
Give us a minute.
we have to go back to this story.
Let me stop right there real quick. You know what Jimmy Wanjigi is saying? Because listen to me. The project, the total project was $570 something billion. I mean, it's billion Kenyan shillings, okay? But he's saying we paid 644 billion as our 10% towards this. But not only did we pay the 600 billion Kenyan shillings, we also borrowed the money from the Exim Bank that paid these guys, okay, which added up to whatever 1 point something trillion dollars. So he was saying the money, the 10% that we were supposed to pay, okay, that we were overcharged, was enough to actually finance this project without us taking money from the Exim Bank. Are you following me? If you don't follow, log in. I have my whatever. I have the link there. Log in and tell me if I'm wrong. Follow up.
We have to start this story again from square one. We start again from square one. First of all, SGR equals ABCD. Then we come into contracts entered into between. We are talking about SGR today. And Jimmy has done a couple of things. So Jimmy has brought to us two contracts that were signed in 2012. This is a contract between Kenya Railways and China Road and Bridge Construction Company. One was for the civil works of building railway between Mombasa and Nairobi. The other one was for provision of rolling stock and locomotives and installing some facilities. Okay?
Plus
Plus.
the third one,
Uh-huh.
which was the finance
the third
MOU.
one was a financing MOU signed
two
in
contracts.
2013 on how to finance those two contracts.
Correct.
This was signed by the National Treasury and the China Exim Bank.
Correct.
And the agreement was 5 billion.
No, 3.8.
3.8.
Yes.
$3.8 billion for that. But then going all the way to Dukamoja in Naivasha,
Increased another 1.2.
so it became 5 billion.
Correct.
Okay. In that 5 billion, what we were supposed to do as the government of Kenya was to finance 10%.
Yes.
Of that amount.
Yes.
Yes.
And you now looked at how the payments were being made.
Yes.
Every time China Road and Bridge will hit a milestone, an agreed milestone, they
Yes.
would present a certificate of completion to Kenya
Correct.
Railways.
Correct.
Kenya Railways would confirm that indeed you have actually hit this point and you are due to be paid. They present that to the Treasury.
Yes.
The Treasury says, all right, so here is our 10%. Kenya Railways pay China Road.
Yes.
And then after that, they
Yes.
send the same to China Exim Bank.
Yes.
And then China Exim Bank pays
The 90%.
the 90%
Correct.
to China Road and Bridge Construction.
Correct.
Total.
Yes.
Okay. In total, you say that
Our 10% contribution.
our 10% contribution should have been 47.5 billion shillings.
Correct.
We ended up paying 644 billion shillings. That's what
Correct.
you find in the books.
Correct.
The books of the National Treasury.
Yes.
And Exim Bank paid China Road how much?
$5 billion.
$5 billion. 500 billion shillings, let's say.
Roughly.
For roughly that.
Different exchange rates.
So then $500 billion should have been a 90% contribution.
Yes.
644 billion shillings, 500 billion shillings should have been a 90% contribution.
Yes.
644 billion shillings should have been a 10% contribution.
Yes.
Now, simple mathematics,
Yes.
644 is more than 500.
Correct.
There's no way 644 can be a 10% contribution
Correct.
in Mchango,
Correct.
and 500 billion is a 90% contribution to the same Harambe.
Correct. Correct.
Are you sure, Jimmy? Are you sure that we paid 644 billion? Because if we indeed paid 644 billion, then we are the ones who paid 90%.
No, we didn't pay 90%. We paid over 100%.
Essentially,
Over 100%.
essentially,
Now you see what he's saying. He did the math. This Chinese, not Exim Bank. Exim Bank is who we were borrowing from. Okay, we were supposed to pay 10%. Again, sorry guys, 10% of the 90 that Exim Bank gives us. Who is getting paid? The China bridges and stuff. Okay, the China bridges that were doing the building, and Kenya Railways are working with them. So every time they meet a milestone, they they tell the treasury, hey, we've reached these kilometers, pay us, okay? And the way we pay them. But all in all, what I'm trying to say is this. The total amount that China Exim Bank, the people who we were borrowing money from to pay bridges of whatever to build this SGR, okay? That bank paid 5 billion Kenyan shillings. We were supposed to pay 10% of that 5 billion. You do the 10% of 5 billion. What is 10% of 5 billion? But instead of paying 10% of that 5 billion, we paid 644 billion. Which is more than 100% of the project. And that's what Wanjigi was saying. So you do the math. How much money they paid this China, whatever. But it gets better. Let's go to it. This is part 1 of this story. I'll do the part 2 tomorrow because I will stop in like 30 minutes. I know this is going long, but if you want to get in the chat, get into the chat. Tell me. There's the link in the chat in YouTube. Get and tell me. But let's go. We're about to finish this. It's about some 20 minutes, but I'll let it run. I won't interrupt anymore.
It means we could have built this railway without that money.
Yes, we didn't need a loan.
Without Exim Bank.
Yes.
We didn't need it. If we could fork out
In
that
fact, we
amount.
could have built it all the way to Kisumu without a loan.
Is it captured elsewhere in the Auditor General's report
No.
of those years?
No.
644 billion
No.
shillings.
No. Well, it
How
is.
come?
It is self-raising finance. It's put there self-raising finance. As
And-
I keep telling you,
and the total
people
is
are not doing the math. You just need to calculate.
So in
I'll
the
give you all the documents
in
if
the
you want
Auditor
them.
General's reports,
Yes.
if you do the total
Yes.
from the Auditor General's report, 644 billion will appear
Yes.
as our self-raising
Yes.
finance.
I will show you. You'll see it very clearly. I've got zip files. I'll give them to you. These are documents, and we made sure we have downloaded them. This is just simple math. People are not doing math here. We have a big problem. Simple math. And you're asking why we have problems. You're asking why we have problems. We are saying conservatively, over 700 billion shillings has been put in somebody's pocket. You see this expressway? It cost about 100 billion shillings.
Yeah, should have been 8.
When I look at it, right, because it's a PPP by China Road and Bridge,
Yeah.
guaranteed by Kenyans.
Yes.
That is just money laundering of our money.
How?
But if you have been paid over 700 billion above your cost,
You need to bring it back.
you just bring it back to wash it.
What did you just
And you
say?
legitimize it.
You've connected the two now.
Yes. You wash it.
A step back. I want to be very sure. This
I will not continue there because it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Listen, I don't want to bore you and I don't want to keep you here longer. That's the part 1. I'm going to play part 2 and part 3. It's a long interview. You can go to Spice FM and listen to Jimmy Wanjigi explaining how this money was laundered. Listen, the total amount of money that we were supposed to pay for this project was 5 billion. Okay? In which 10% of that 5 billion, we were supposed to pay for that. You calculate what 5 billion, the 10% of 5 billion is. Instead of paying that, 10% of 5 billion should be less than 5 billion, right? But instead of paying that, we paid 644 billion. The math is not mathing. So what I want to impress upon you, Jimmy Wanjigi is saying, is that this money was laundered. Where did this money go? Then we had that highway that was being built. I don't know, Huru Highway bullshit, okay? Where it only costs 100 million, okay? What is 100 million if you've stolen 700 billion? You can pay that 100 billion and give 600 billion to whoever laundered that money. But guess what? It's Kenyans, taxpayers, who are going to pay for the money that we took from Exim Bank and that 700 billion. Are you getting the point? This is what I'm trying to tell you. The Uhuru Kenyatta government, Uhuru Kenyatta regime, and Ruto was part of it, so he probably knows about this, looted so much money from the treasury. It is an outrage. Okay? And they're still borrowing money. It did not start with Uhuru Kenyatta, it started with Kibaki. But instead of confronting these issues, we are still here talking about, we are waiting for Raila Odinga to give us the big secret that he has discovered from UDA. You see how stupid we are? This is what I'm trying. The issues that are affecting us, that is making us pay this high price of living, we're not confronting. But we are so busy listening to this nonsensical ramblings and quarrels between UDA, Kenya Kwanza, Azimio, bullshit. As if Raila Odinga is going to help. Raila Odinga was in power. He knows about these deals. You think he's gonna fix it? But wanawazungusha, oh, I'm going to reveal a big secret about UDA. And nyi mafala mmeka hapo ati tungoje. While Ruto is looting. And he's been eating with Kenyatta, Uhuru. That's why I asked you that question in my previous life. Why do you think Uhuru Kenyatta gave power to William Ruto? Do you think it was an accident? It was an accident. He knows who he was giving power to. He's giving the power to somebody who he knows. Thank you, Brother Benson. He's giving power to somebody who he knows will not arrest him for the money that they've stolen. These people are one of the same. They're in one group. Wanakula pesa yetu, the taxpayers people. All of them. Ruto, Kenyatta, Kibaki, Raila, and all the minions that are in Azimio and Kenya Kwanza. They're part of the plan. Right now you heard the Megan sijui amesema ati sijui that election now it was rigged and whatever. I told you, in order for them to bring this BBI, they have to create a crisis, because most Kenyans do not accept this idea of creating these useless positions of sijui whatever of the opposition sijui nini. But the only way they can bring this BBI into fruition, the only way they can actualize it to give people like Kalonzo Musyoka, useless people, to get positions, is to create a crisis. So now, because most Kenyans think that once the ambassador of the US says that, oh yeah, election was rigged, people will be like, oh yeah, America imesema, so ni ukweli. You will go there and protest. Yeah, price of mafuta. And some of us are innocent. We are going there to protest kwa sababu the prices of mafuta is high, the prices of commodities are high, which you should protest. But they're going to make it a violent process. There are people who have been paid, wakina Gaucho, Maina Njenga. They shall bring their mungiki to make it a violent protest. Alafu wale mapolisi ambao wametumwa na Ruto, they'll start shooting people down. Then the paid lobotomized parrots like Herman Manyora will come out in the media and say, let us these two gentlemen talk, sit down and talk. The media shall focus on the Herman Manyoras and the clergymen, saying these two people should talk in order so we can have peace. And then Raila will sit down with Ruto and they shall have a BBI, the nonsense, that the narco bullshit that they've been talking about in Bomas. And there shall you have the position of the opposition and the position of cabinet sijui nini where Musalia Mudavadi will sit, and all the nonsense giving positions to everybody. And guess who will pay the salary of this ridiculous colonial puppets? We, the taxpayers, shall pay for their salaries. It is done by design. Nobody is talking about what Jimmy Wanjigi is telling us. Under Uhuru Kenyatta, under William Ruto's watch, under Kibaki, they stole billions, if not trillions of Kenyan shillings. But we are not holding them accountable. When listen to me, when the witnesses of ICC were going to confess and give statements in court to indict President William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta in 2013, the person in the government, Kibaki, was supposed to protect the witnesses, but he failed to do so. Dennis Itumbi exposed the witnesses, and before you know it, they were all killed, and they failed to show up to provide evidence against William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta. William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta should have been in prison right now. But they've co-opted this octogenarian with his protruded stomach, Raila Amolo Odinga, conman. That's why I tell you, we have to have a grassroots Rasta revolutionary movement to remove these colonial puppets from Kenya. They're still under the British rule. Rasta is not a religion. For those of you who are growing dreadlocks and smoking weed, God bless you. I'm talking about a Rasta political movement. Rasta standing, an acronym standing for restoration of African sovereignty to Africans. You have to be a sovereign being. That's what I'm talking about. Ruto, Raila, Maina Jenga, Uhuru Kenyatta, all these, Kalonzo Musyoka, they are all colonial puppets. And right now, guess what? Within the next month, Mandamano shall go on because they're acting as if, oh, Ruto is the bad person. Ruto is the one who's bringing the cost of living high. Let's go to Mandamano, and then there shall be chaos. Ruto will not be able to rule. Then they shall sit down and come up with a BBI. And once these people come in a BBI, there shall be peace. Okay? The cost of living will still be high, but all you dumb fucks will be sitting there saying, you know what, Raila ko kwa kiti. Don't worry about it. Baba ko kwa kiti. Because right now you dumb fucks are talking about why is Raila not talking? Raila should come out and speak. Raila should come back to Mandamano. Are you waiting for Raila Odinga to lead your revolutionary movement? This sellout has been selling out since 1997. Raila is a freaking sellout. When his people were being killed in Kisumu and in Naivasha, he did not say anything. If anything, he's standing with the very person that was commanding Kikuyus, Mungiki. Not Kikuyus, Mungiki. There's a difference between Kikuyus and Mungiki. He's standing shoulder to shoulder with the Mungiki leader who killed innocent Luos in Naivasha, who killed innocent Luos in Kisumu. This sellout that was paid by Uhuru Kenyatta is the person who you think shall bring some revolution in Kenya. Raila is a sellout, a colonial puppet, a lobotomized parrot. He told us that his friend is Prince Charles, is his personal friend. If Prince Charles is his personal friend, Why didn't he tell Prince Charles to go and pay off the Mau Mau people, the families of Mau Mau soldiers that died, that were killed, brutalized by the British government? How long? What will it take for you to understand that Raila is a conman, a faker? Just like Uhuru Kenyatta, the son of a British agent. Same thing with Ruto. Kalonzo Musyoka is a gone case. Open your fucking eyes and use your brain. Think logically, critical thinking. Jimmy Wanjigi is exposing how much trillions that was stolen under Uhuru Kenyatta government that started with Kibaki. Kibaki, who you fuckfaces in Azimio are trying to prop up as the best president that has helped the economy grow. No, he did not help the economy grow. He stole like anybody else. Torre Teach stole for 24 years. Kibaki and his wife are rotting in hell right now because of the things that they stole. Uhuru Kenyatta get in and watch the trillions that he stole under the watch of this fucker. What's his name? Ruto. And Ruto is doing the same. And he wants to co-opt Raila again because Raila is supposed to be the control opposition. They're eating this money with Raila Odinga. But you're so stupid. You keep on focusing your energy on these political corrupt characters. Open your fucking eyes. Raila, Ruto, Uhuru, all these Maina Njenga, Martha Karua, Musyoka, Kalwale, Sifuna, they're all colonial puppets. Kenya will not be free till we have real revolutionary movement from the ground. People who don't care about Raila Odinga, people who don't care about Kenyatta. This whole talk about Mount Kenya politics, Western politics, Nyanza politics. How about people who rise and speak about the real issues? Real revolutionary movement, grassroots movement that does not depend on what Raila Odinga thinks, does not depend on what Kenyatta thinks, does not depend on what Kalonzo Musyoka thinks, does not depend on what Maina Njenga thinks. Until that day, you will always be a slave and play musical chairs with these colonial puppets. And you will not find the solutions. You will all talk about what Ruto is doing wrong, what Raila is doing wrong, what Uhuru did wrong, what Kibaki did wrong, what Moi did wrong, but you stay in the same position. No liberation. Because you fail to understand that these are colonial puppets put there to oppress you economically. Liberate yourself. I'll stop here. It's been an hour. My name is Kenya Revolutionary. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, go ahead and find me on YouTube. Subscribe, share, like, and follow me on Twitter, X. Follow me so you can get the latest news on what I'm saying. Peace and blessings.